we're going to go on to, I think, one of the biggest questions is, and I'm going to move our itinerary around a little bit here. I had it in a wrong order. So one of the biggest questions besides our offensive line is the impact of, obviously, Will Stein. Losing Kenny Dillingham.
Glad we got into it. I am so glad we're here.
It's like losing Kenny Dillingham.
Will Stein.
So,
let me tell you about what I think about Will Stein here and how this is going to happen. First of all, I think there's a big connotation around the college football world that you lose your offensive coordinator, you're going to take a massive step back. There's going to be some regression, systematically speaking. There's going to be some changes with the new OC coming in. What I don't think people realize is Will Stein is very much a similar offensive coordinator to the way Kenny Dillingham ran things. So, I was just kind of going through last year, taking some look at, what Will Stein was doing at UTSA. And the man led an offense that was 15th overall in points per game across all of the FBS, 9th in total offense. His quarterback had more yards and more touchdowns than Bo Nix last year. Now, let me say, obviously UTSA, whole different caliber of programs they're playing against each week. But what it does tell you is they're not expected to wipe the floor with these programs. This quarterback was excelling in the system. I think it would be a disservice to look at Bo Nix and say he's going to have a massive regression. Thank you. Yeah, very good. Have a massive regression because of the change in OC. Everything we're hearing out of camp sounds great. The coaches seem to gel with the man. I'm going to go out on the limb and say I don't think we're going to see a major difference here. I think in terms of offense, in terms of schematics, in terms of results, I think we see a very similar offense to last year. Not saying it's the same, and we're definitely going to see some differences in how they run things. And, hopefully we clean a few things up with Will Stein coming in. But I do think we see similar results here.
I'm on board with that. What do you think, Spaz? With we got into, you kind of walked into it. We went on with the impact of losing Kenny Dillingham and getting Will Stein in, and that's one of the other question marks, much like kind of the O line a little bit, is how will that work out? And so we were just kind of really just getting into like what they did with UTSA last year and pulling up some of the stats for their team.
Yeah, I think we'll be fine with Will Stein. I think he likes to throw the ball. Obviously, he likes to do some fast-paced offense, which is right up our alley. We do like to do a lot of no huddle and quick draw. A lot of play action. So that'll be I don't think it's going to be much different. I think it may even actually open up Bo more. He's got the receivers now, I believe, that he didn't have last year. And everybody's talking about SC and all the receivers they have. I think our receiving room is just as good as USC's. Very much as good. And I think that November 21st or whatever that game with USC is going to be a slobber knocker.
That's what that's actually something right here. HR Bickenstuff said he's like, I'm a USC fan, but that one scares him. And it scares us, I think, as Oregon fans, too, because I think it's going to be a shootout. I think that's the type of game. It's going to be like a –
it's going to be like the Wazoo game from a couple of years ago. What was it, 45-42 or whatever?
Oh, we've had too many of those with Wazoo. Way too many of those types of games with Wazoo. But that's it, what you just said. So Stein, he likes to run the ball. He does like to run the ball, but he said he likes to take deep passes. And even from UTSA last year, which they're not going to have the talent to the level that we're going to have or we have right now, even their passes were over 8 yards per attempt, that's a pretty good number. Over 8 yards per attempt. That's a pretty decent number.
Yeah, and I believe if you scroll down, it's 12 yards per completion, and that's absolutely insanity.
34 touchdowns.
See, and this is kind of the thing I'm saying here. I think, strictly because the name change, Will Stein, he's coming from UTSA. UTSA, who comes out of UTSA, or Oregon, they got all these transfers, they lost their old line. No, we'll see when we step on the field here. I think people are going to realize more quickly than not that Will Stein is not going to hinder this program. It could elevate it. I'm not going to go be as bold to say as it absolutely will. We're going to find out for ourselves, but I do think there's a great shot it does happen.
I do believe people had the same question last year, remember, about this time going, is Dillingham the right OC to bring in? Because he hasn't ever really been the OC before, really, Yeah. Well, that worked out pretty damn well. So I'm going to trust in Lanning's decision to go, this is the kind of guy I want.
Yeah, and you bring up a great point about Kenny Dillingham too. I believe, correct me, man, if I'm wrong here, but I believe he was the OC at Florida State and Memphis prior to coming to Oregon. And, I know a lot of the chit chat in the preseason and, just the banter back and forth was around Kenny Dillingham's story. He didn't do it at Memphis. He didn't do it at Florida State. How is he going to do it at Oregon? But I think that does go to show you that, circumstances change people. Circumstances change everything. If he comes to Oregon, hits his stride, gets his players, who knows? I'm not going to come out here and say what's going to happen, but I like where we're at.
Yeah, I really like where this team sits right now, offensively and defensively. I mean, again, if you go back and look at our depth chart, like I believe Derek was saying earlier, we have a lot of juniors and seniors this year, and a lot of experience. Maybe not so much at Oregon, but yet the transfer kids have experience. We didn't just pick up guys that sat on somebody's bench for 3 years, and now these guys have all got double-digit starts, pretty much, most of them.
Yeah, and I mean, guys like, the Tyshim Johnsons of the world, the Kyrie Jacksons, they have SEC defense experience. I don't care what anybody says. SEC defense is, it's high-caliber defense. It's high-caliber offense. You have to be on top of your game if you want to compete in the SEC. And I think these guys walked in there and, especially Tyshim Johnson, that man, if he would have been an Oregon Duck last year, he would have led us in tackles. The man had 72 tackles last year. For context, Noah Sewell, who came in number 2, had 52. He would have wiped the floor with it. He's a guy we can slide into the nickel position. He was highly effective at Ole Miss, brings a ton of physicality. I think guys like those are the guys we want to be bringing in.
Well, and Burge, he just didn't seem to click in South Carolina, but he had flashes where he showed that 5-star potential. In the spring game, he looked pretty decent. Yep. But I want to see him unleashed. And
absolutely.
I think that's why he came here. Is they went, this is what we're going to do with you, and he went, yeah, I need a change. He wanted to get out of South Carolina, and he picked the Ducks.
And people who are skeptical about that, I would say one thing: Bo Nix. I think it's very similar at Auburn. We have a guy who was a 5-star player committed to Auburn. We expected to see, Heisman caliber player at Auburn. We didn't. We saw flashes, and he was great in flashes. And, when he came to Oregon, everybody expected the same thing. But I think, us 3 men right here, I can look in the mirror and say I was ecstatic to have Bo Nix as our QB last year.
I was too. I was like, everybody was like, the national pundits were all about, he really didn't perform at Auburn. He had flashes, but I just don't see him doing that much at Oregon. And I was like, look, I watched him go up and down the field on one of the top-ranked defenses, our Oregon Ducks, a few years ago I believe he was a true freshman that year.
Yep.
Yeah.
He beat Herbie.
Yeah. He beat Justin Herbert. Yeah. And so I knew I had a good feeling going in that he was going to be a solid pickup, and he would just get right in and make things happen. And the way he can run the ball and throw the ball, and now that he's got more than just 1 or 2 receivers that he can commit to, he's got a multitude of receivers, some tight ends, and backs out of the backfield that can catch the ball. I mean, this team could be very dangerous.
Absolutely.
Well, last year too, that's it. We didn't have the receivers for him, so everyone looks at the Georgia game and then, wrote us off, which, I mean, trust me, open-heartedly, again, I admit I had to do the post game. It was awful. Then week 2 came around, and you saw the transformation amongst how the offensive players were lined up. That was a learning experience for Dillingham.
Absolutely.
Well, this year, Stein, if he has issues, only has to go against Portland State. So hopefully he'll see something, and if he has to adjust something, adjust it. But the talent level this year compared to last year at the skill positions is ridiculous. Because last year, Whittington started, not Irving, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I do remember him splitting carries virtually 50-50 early in the year. I'm not sure who they designated the starter.
I think Whittington started, actually, but then Bucky just grabbed it and ran with it. And so there was a lot of new faces and learning adjustments. Same as Stein. We have to realize there's going to be a little learning curve when you're dealing with the whole lineup. Who's this, who's that, and the play calling.
And
at least
we
get a warm-up, though. We get a warm-up with Portland State, so to say. Yep. No offense, Portland State.
Nobody really knew who he was last year. Nobody had an idea who he really was, and he just took the ball and ran with it and was very impressive last year.
That's putting it lightly. That man was he was a spark plug of the offense that needed
lightning in a bottle.
Yeah,
he was after, because he was as close to Michael James, for instance, as we've gotten it since then. Since then, we've done Verdell, of course, Rolls Royce, and we've had a lot of real good power backs. But he was the last real shifty one, maybe outside of DeAnthony Thomas, but he's a slot receiver. Really, he was a slot receiver, but because that's what Felipe is saying here is like we've had so many good running backs. Well, if the NFL became successful, maybe we return to a strong running attack. Maybe, yeah. It could just be a heavy run team with play action. Again, we don't know what to expect. It could be pass happy. It could be 50-50, or it could be 60 run, 40 pass, which is fine if it's effective.
Oh, yeah, and I think that's some of the beauty of the season coming in. It's some of the unknown. It's a beautiful, beautiful mystery.
But these stats do show a good amount for what we expect from Stein in the sense of it, because he doesn't want to change the system too much. He doesn't want to screw with what's not broken, as he put it. And the numbers here are good.